What if the state famous for its sky-high taxes actually takes a smaller bite out of its poorest residents than the states boasting about having no income tax at all?
I mean, it sounds completely backward on paper, right? But when you look under the hood, the math tells a really fascinating and complex story about how states actually operate.
Yeah, and we are jumping right into a massive political fight today. This recently completely dominated the headlines.
Oh, absolutely. It was everywhere.
Just a few days ago, California Governor Gavin Newsom went to the South by Southwest conference in Austin, Texas.
Right into the lion's den.
Exactly. He stood right there in the Lone Star State and sparked a massive debate by claiming that middle and lower income Americans actually pay less in taxes in California than they do in Texas or Florida.
Which is a huge claim to make, right, in Texas.
Oh, yeah. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis immediately fired back, calling the claim, quote, damned lies.
Yeah. And meanwhile, conservative think tanks immediately started pointing out California's massive cost of living.
Right. And that steady stream of billionaires packing their bags and leaving the Golden State. So our mission for this deep dive is clear. We are taking a stack of intense political claims, think tank reports, and raw economic data, and we're unpacking exactly how state taxes impact you.
And right off the bat, we really need to set some ground rules for how we look at this data.
Yes, a quick heads up before people get upset. We are looking at data from conservative think tanks like the Hoover Institution and the Independent Institute.
Along with progressive groups like the Institute on Taxation and Economic Policy, plus the Tax Foundation.
Right, we're pulling from everywhere. We are not taking sides here. We are not here to crown Gavin Newsom or Ron DeSantis the winner or to validate any specific political platform.
We just want to impartially report the data. Just look into the hood of the math to see how these invisible tax machines actually target your wallet.
Okay, let's unpack this. Before we can declare a winner in the California versus Texas debate, we first have to understand the invisible machinery of how states collect their money.
Which is really the core of the issue.
Exactly. And more importantly, we need to understand who feels the pinch the most. Nationally, the data shows that state and local taxes are overwhelmingly regressive.
Yeah, and we should probably break down what that actually means for someone's paycheck.
Go for it.
So, a regressive tax system simply means it hits lower earners much harder than wealthy earners.
Right.
When you look at the national averages, the bottom 20% of earners pay 11.4% of their income in state and local taxes.
Over a tenth of what they make.
Exactly. The middle 20% pay 10.5%. But the top 1% of earners, well, they pay just 7.2%.
Wow.
Yeah, a massive 44 states actually worsen income inequality after they collect their taxes.
So basically, the less you make, the higher the percentage of your income you surrender.
That's the reality of it, yeah.
I like to think about it like a flat $10 cover charge at a local diner. Imagine two guys walk into the diner.
Okay, I'm tracking.
One guy only has $20 in his pocket. The other guy has $2,000 in his pocket. They both pay that same $10 cover charge.
Right.
For the first guy, that $10 fee just wiped out half his total wealth. He feels that loss deeply.
Yeah.
But the guy with $2,000, he doesn't even know the $10 is missing.
That is a perfect way to look at it. And that diner cover charge is the exact mechanism behind sales and excise taxes.
How so?
So think about how a low-income family survives day to day. They must spend almost everything they earn just to pay for basic necessities.
Right, like groceries and rent.
Exactly. They buy groceries, they buy clothes for their kids, they buy gas to get to work. They have zero money left over to put into savings.
Or the stock market.
Exactly. Because they spend everything they make, their entire income effectively gets taxed right at the cash register.
While a millionaire might only spend, a fraction of their income on consumer goods.
Right. And they funnel the rest into untaxed investments or savings accounts. What's fascinating here is how much states rely on that cash register tax.
Right. States essentially pull from two different buckets of money.
Yeah, they tax income, which is what you earn, or they tax consumption, which is what you spend. Progressive income taxes charge higher rates as your income goes up.
But many states refuse to use progressive income taxes.
Exactly, so they lean entirely on taxing consumption.
Okay, so knowing that taxing spending hurts the poor more than taxing income, let's apply this math to the big state showdown.
Just do it.
How do Florida and Texas compare to California when we look at the actual numbers?
Well, the numbers from the ITIP report are really striking. Florida actually ranks as the #1 most regressive tax system in the entire nation.
Number one. Wow.
Yeah, and Texas ranks as the 7th most regressive. In Florida, the poorest 20% of residents pay 13.2% of their income to state and local taxes.
And Texas.
In Texas, they pay 12.8%. But in California, that poorest 20% pays a lower rate of 11.7%.
Okay, so Gavin Newsom's claim actually holds up for the bottom tier. The working class surrenders a smaller percentage of their income to taxes in California than they do in Florida or Texas.
For that bottom tier, yes, absolutely.
But the script totally flips when you look at the ultra-wealthy, right?
Oh, completely. The top 1% of earners pay just 2.7% of their income in taxes in Florida.
2.7, that is nothing.
Right. In Texas, they pay 4.6%. California, however, uses highly progressive income brackets.
Which means they tax the rich heavily.
Exactly. The top 1% in California pay 12% of their income in taxes, and for the absolute highest earners, that rate can push up to 13.3% or even 14.4%.
So Florida takes 2.7% from a billionaire, while California takes 12% or more.
That's the trade-off.
But wait, if Texas and Florida barely tax the rich and they have no state income tax at all, how do they afford to pave roads and run schools?
Well, they aggressively tax sales and property. Texas relies incredibly heavily on local property taxes to fund its government.
Right, property taxes.
And they have no state cap on how high those local rates can go. One small town in Texas, a place called Delusion, recently hit a jaw-dropping 4.2% property tax rate.
4.2%.
Yeah. If you own a $300,000 home there, you pay over $12,000 a year just in property taxes alone.
But wait, if someone rents an apartment in Texas, they dodge that massive property tax bullet, right?
No, they really don't.
Wait, really?
Renters pay property taxes indirectly. I mean, a landlord simply calculates the skyrocketing property tax bill and rolls that cost directly into the monthly rent. The tenant absorbs the tax increase.
Oh, that makes sense.
Now, California handles this mechanism very differently due to a famous law called Proposition 13.
Oh, that's the law from the 1970s that capped property taxes, right?
Exactly. It caps California property taxes at basically 1% of the home's assessed value.
Which keeps people in their homes.
Yes, but here is the mechanism that changes everything. When California capped property taxes, local cities and counties suddenly lost their primary funding source for public schools and local services.
So who pays for it?
To keep the local governments afloat, the state government had to swoop in and cover the massive funding gap. And to get that money, the state leans incredibly heavily on the personal income tax of its highest earners.
Ah, so that's why the income tax is so high.
Yep. And on top of that, California offers refundable tax credits to the poor.
Right, so if a low-income worker owes no income tax, the state actually sends them a refund check to help offset the sales and property taxes they paid at the cash register during the year.
Which naturally brings down their overall tax burden, making the system much less regressive than Texas or Florida.
Okay, but here's where it gets really interesting for me.
Go on.
Wait, if California is supposedly charging the working class less and caps property taxes at 1%, why does the Tax Foundation rank California an abysmal 48th for overall tax competitiveness?
That is the big question.
Right, because meanwhile, Florida ranks 40th and Texas ranks 45th. Clearly, we are missing a massive piece of the puzzle here.
You're exactly right, because tax rates only tell half the story. The other half is the raw cost of living.
Ah, the hidden costs.
Exactly. Saving 1% on your effective tax rate is mathematically meaningless if your basic living expenses drain your bank account before the month even ends.
Let's look at something everyone buys, like gasoline. The state gas tax in California recently hit 69.8 cents per gallon.
And that's just the state level.
Right. When you add in federal taxes, Californians pay 88.2 cents in taxes for every single gallon of gas they pump. That hits the working class every single day during their commute.
It really does. Energy policy essentially acts as a massive hidden tax. For instance, the Valero refinery in Benicia, California is closing down.
Which is a big deal.
A huge deal. It wipes out 145,000 barrels of oil refining capacity.
Imagine finding out your electric bill
But wait,
is
if a
secretly
local
funding the
refinery goes
government's massive
offline,
spending
can't California
addiction.
just,
It is a
pretty
shocking
pipe in
realization when you
surplus
actually
gas
look
from
at
a
the math.
neighboring state
Right.
like Nevada
Well,
or
imagine
Texas
for a
to
second
keep
that you have a
prices
savings
low?
account.
Well, no.
And
Because of strict environmental laws,
you swore to
California
your family
requires a
hand
very
over heart
unique,
that
clean
this
burning
money
fuel
was strictly
blend
for
that
fixing
no
a
other
leaking
state
roof.
produces.
You
Oh,
said,
so they intentionally
fix this
isolated
roof,
their own fuel market.
The house is
exactly.
going to collapse.
They
It's
aren't
an
connected to the
existential crisis
interstate
for the
gas
house.
pipelines
Exactly.
that
It's
serve
to
the
save
rest
the
of
house
country.
fund.
So when a California refinery goes offline,
too much on
they
groceries,
literally
you've
have
got
to
bills
wait for a
piling up.
specialized
So what do you do?
tanker
You
to
raid the
sail
roof fund.
across the Pacific
You
Ocean
take that money,
from
pay off
places
your
like
credit
South
cards,
Korea.
and tell your
Which
family, hey,
fundamentally
don't worry, we'll
alters
fix
the
roof
supply
later.
and demand
Right.
curves.
It creates
And in this
a
scenario,
massive bottleneck.
The roof is the planet.
California now
Or at
imports
least
Maryland's
64%
climate
of its
goals,
oil from foreign
and the
sources.
car is a massive
64%.
self-inflicted.
And to give you some perspective, back in 1982, California only imported 6%
A
of its oil
completely avoidable deficit,
because they
I
have
might
to
add.
ship that special
Welcome to
gas
the deep
blend across
dive.
the ocean.
Today we're
Analysts
exploring
warn
the
that
gas
gas prices
prices
could
could
easily
easily
drive
sleight
up
of
to
hand coming
$5.50
out of
a
Annapolis.
gallon.
That
We are
kind of
looking at the
everyday
Strategic
expense
Energy
crushes
Investment Fund,
low-income families.
the SAIF.
It instantly wipes out
It's
any
a
savings
huge
they
pot
got
of money
from the progressive
meant to
income
save the
tax
environment.
brackets.
Exactly.
But it's
And
turning
it's
into
not
a
just
hidden
the energy
tax
sector.
on every single
The cost
person
to simply
paying an
run the
electric bill
California
in
government
Maryland.
apparatus
It
has
really is. It's become the
exploded.
center of a
Oh, the numbers
huge
are
political
wild.
fight. You've
The
got
Hoover
a Democratic
Institution notes that
governor,
California's
frustrated
state and
environmentalists
local
making
government
some very
revenue
awkward
hits over
compromises,
$50,000
and conservative
per
critics who are
household.
rightly calling
So
this
if
whole
you
thing
divide
a shell
the
game.
government's
shell
total
game.
budget by the
And
number
when
of
you look at the
households, it
documents we
costs
have today,
$50,000 a
reports,
year just to
budget
provide
proposals,
government
critiques
services
from
to a
Senate
single
Republicans,
home.
it is
Where's all
really
that
hard to
money
unsee it.
going?
Our
A
mission for this deep
massive
dive is
chunk
simple.
goes to
Follow the money.
public employee
Always
compensation
follow the money.
and
We are going to
unfunded
see
pension
how a
liabilities.
fund
Pensions
designed
are
to
always
fight
the
climate
silent budget
change
killer.
is being
They
used
really
to plug
are.
holes in
The
the
average
state
state
budget.
worker compensation
And we'll dig
in
into the
California
argument that
reaches
this
around
isn't found money at all. This is
$190,000
essentially
when
a
you factor
backdoor
in their
tax on
salary,
families.
their healthcare
Let's get right
benefits,
into
and
it.
their long-term
The Strategic
pensions.
Energy
And
Investment
funding
Fund.
those
Sounds
massive
very
legacy
official,
costs
very
forces
important.
the state to
What does it actually
constantly
do?
seek new
Well,
revenue.
on
Right.
paper.
If we
It is
connect
the
this to the
state's
bigger
green
picture,
piggy bank.
relying so
The
heavily
SIF
on
is
the
managed by
ultra-wealthy
the
to pay the
Maryland Energy
bills
Administration.
creates a
Its whole stated
massive
purpose
structural
is to
vulnerability.
reduce
It
energy
creates
bills,
a wild boom
cut
and bust
waste, and
cycle.
fund
Exactly.
renewable
California's
energy.
state
Like
budget
solar
depends
panels and
heavily on
efficiency
capital
upgrades.
gains taxes
Exactly.
from a
But
tiny
here is
fraction
the
of
real
its
aha
population.
moment of the story.
And just for clarity, a capital gain is
where
the
does the
profit
money
you make when
actually
you sell
come
an asset,
from?
like stock.
Because they aren't
Right.
just taxing
So in
you
Silicon Valley
directly for
booms
it.
and tech stocks
No, and that's why
soar,
politicians absolutely
billionaires
love it.
paid
It feels
billions
free.
in capital
So about
gains
40%
taxes,
comes
and
from
California
regional
suddenly
carbon
runs a
auctions.
massive budget
But
surplus.
the big
But when
chunk,
the stock
the
market
one growing like
dips,
crazy,
or,
comes
tech
with something
companies
called
lay people
alternative
off,
compliance
that tax revenue
payments,
just falls off a
or
cliff.
ACPs.
The
Which is
state
just a
suddenly
fancy government
faces
term for a
catastrophic
fine.
deficits.
Right, and
fine
California
for
is
failure.
currently
Let me
staring
break it
down
down.
massive budget
Maryland
deficits.
law forces
To fix the
utility
gap,
companies to buy
lawmakers
a
proposed
certain
a
amount of
5%
green
wealth
energy.
tax
They
on
have to prove they're using
billionaires.
renewables.
But the billionaires
But
won't
they
just
can't
sit
find that
around
green
waiting
energy,
to
or
hand
if it's
over
just
their
way too
fortunes.
expensive on the market.
Tech
Which it
moguls
usually
like
is.
Peter Thiel
Yeah, the state
already
gives them an
packed up
escape
their
hatch.
mansions
The
and moved
utility
their
can just pay
residency
a
to
fee
Florida.
directly to the state
Right.
instead.
Real
That
estate
fee
agents
is
in
the
places like
ACP.
Miami
And
report
here's
a
the kicker.
flood of California
Utilities are
billionaires buying up
increasingly
mega
just paying the
properties
fine because it's cheaper
specifically
than actually
to
buying
escape
the green
proposed
energy.
wealth
Wait,
tax.
so
Which
the
highlights a
climate fund is
terrifying
getting
irony in the
incredibly
state's
rich.
long-term planning. The
Precisely
sources point out that
because
California is
the green
currently
energy
building a
mandates are
massive
failing.
high-speed rail
Precisely.
system.
It is a
Oh, the rail
completely
project.
perverse
Yeah, the original
incentive.
cost
The
estimates
government
were modest,
made the mandate
but the
so
price
aggressive
tag has
and the market is
absolutely
so distorted
exploded to a
that power
staggering
companies are just writing
$135
checks to the state instead of going
billion.
green.
And the state
the
relies
stats on this are
heavily on the
just
tax
staggering.
revenue
They
of those
are.
few wealthy
In
tech
2022,
billionaires
this
to
revenue
fund
was $77
massive
million.
infrastructure
By
projects like that train.
2025,
So if you
it
drive
jumped to
those specific billionaires out of the state with a new
$365
wealth
million.
tax,
Wow,
who actually
from
pays the
$77 million to
$135 billion
$365
bill?
in 3 years.
Right, so
The
now the
working
state
class
has
definitely can't absorb a cost
massive
that
accidental
massive.
You
pot
really
of
can't
gold.
fund a
It's supposedly
sprawling,
for green
expensive
projects.
government if
But
the
remember,
people
that
paying the
money didn't
majority
just
of the
fall out of the
bills
sky.
simply
The
decide to
utility
change their
companies
zip
paid
code.
those fines.
So what does this all mean
And do you
for
think those
the
massive
listener trying to make
corporations
sense
just
of
eat that
these
cost
two
out of the
very
goodness of
different
their
hurdles?
hearts?
Oh,
Well,
absolutely
it
not.
means
They pass
building
every
a state
single
economy
penny of that onto the
requires
customer.
brutal
Exactly, it shows
trade-offs.
up right on your
You
electric
can choose
bill.
the
So
Florida
you,
and
the
Texas
everyday
route,
ratepayer,
Which means
are
you
paying
avoid
for the
income
utility's
taxes
failure
entirely
to meet
to
a
attract
government
businesses
mandate.
and wealthy
The
investors.
state collects your money,
But the
drops it in the
trade-off
safe,
is
and says,
you force
look at
your
all this
poorest
cash we have for the
residents
climate.
to surrender a
brings us
much
to the
higher
rate.
percentage of their income
Because that
to
money
fund
is
local
definitely not
schools and
staying in the
roads
climate
through
fund.
sales
Not
and property
anymore.
taxes.
Enter Governor
Or
Wes
you
Moore.
choose the California
His
route.
administration
You
is
protect
staring
the
down a
poorest residents
projected
with
progressive income
$1.5
brackets and
billion
refundable
budget
credits.
deficit.
And you heavily tax the
1.5
ultra-wealthy to
billion.
cover the massive
You can't just
state
ignore
budget.
a hole that deep. But the
You
trade-off
can't.
there is
And
you
when
make
government
the everyday
overspends
cost
to
of
that
living
degree,
unbearable
they start
with
checking
hidden
under
energy
the couch
costs,
cushions for
and you
loose
risk
change.
driving your biggest
Except
taxpayers
here, the couch
right out of
cushion
the
is the
state.
green
Which
energy
leaves us
fund,
with a fascinating
and the
new
loose
dynamic
change is
to
hundreds of
consider.
millions of taxpayer
Historically,
dollars.
states
what's the
really
actual
only worried
proposal? How
about
much are they taking?
billionaires
The
relocating
governor's
to protect
plan
their wealth.
diverts $292 million directly from the
Remote
safe
work
into
changed
the
everything.
state's general fund.
Exactly. We
Just to
aren't just
balance
talking
the
about
books.
Peter Thiel
Just to cover
moving
their
to Miami
overspending.
anymore.
Right, it's the middle
They
class too
are
now.
using
If
energy
remote work
fines to
allows
pay
the
for
six-figure
general
middle-class
government
managers
operations,
to take their
bureaucracy,
California
salaries, office
and
supplies,
log in
you
from
name
a
it.
zero-tax
But that's not
state
even
like
all of it.
Nevada or
Yeah.
I read in the
Texas,
sources
do
there's also
state
a
borders
rebate
even
scheme.
matter
Yes,
for taxation
this
anymore.
is the part
That
critics are
is
calling a
the
political
million-dollar
sweetener.
question.
They're grabbing
We might
another
be heading toward a future
$100
where
million
states have to
out of the
aggressively
fund to
compete
give
for
a
ordinary
one-time
citizens the same
$40
way
rebate to
cell phone
eligible
providers compete
households.
for customers.
$40.
Because if the guy
So
with
let me get this straight.
$2,000 walks
The
out
state
door,
mandates
the guy
drive
with
up
$20
energy
suddenly
costs.
finds himself stuck
The utility
paying for the
companies
entire
pass those
diner.
massive
completely new
costs to
world.
you and me.
Thanks for taking this
Our
deep
bills
dive
go
with
up
us
by
today.
hundreds
We will
of
catch you
dollars a
next time.
year.